Hello, listeners. We hope you're doing well. Welcome to the first episode of our fifth and final series, Forming the Reform, where today we will be talking about reforming the current curriculum.
Now, let's first understand what curriculum means. So, curriculum is defined as those transactions and interactions that take place between students and teachers and among students with the intent that learning takes place. So, when we talk about reforming the curriculum, what we mean is that there needs to be a change in the idea of what students learn. So, basically, we need to go beyond textbook knowledge.
Absolutely. But before we look at the need for a reform, let's sort of understand what's currently happening in India. The emphasis in the Indian curriculum as of now is on general education, and it covers basic subjects like reading, writing, and maths, also supplemented by history, geography, general sciences, certain languages, and civics. And
Right.
although neither of us favor this rigid selection of subjects, that won't be the focus of this episode.
Yes, that's right. We will instead be discussing what more needs to be included in this existing curriculum, in addition to the core subjects that Fatima just mentioned, in order to groom students for the real world, which dispenses theoretical knowledge while also making students more competent to deal with practical problems.
Right. Now, for instance, it has been observed that the youth these days seriously lack basic soft skills, knowledge,
Right.
and even awareness about issues in general. And this sort of directly affects our personal and professional relationships.
Yeah, very true. And therefore, constant improvements and reevaluation of the curriculum that is taught to the learners needs to be done regularly to keep the learners up to date.
Not only that, but a reformed curriculum which imparts out of textbook knowledge will also create a more informed youth, making them better citizens and leaders of tomorrow.
Yes, that, and it will also make them truly independent and self reliant individuals, which is such a necessity to survive and excel in any sphere.
I agree. Now, to do this, some very basic but necessary topics need to be incorporated in the school curriculums. Now, at present, some of these are already existent, but their implementation is still very poor and hence it does not really bear any results. So, let's look at some of the topics that we think must be added to all school curricula.
First and foremost, I think are life skills, which are a set of basic skills that enable individuals to effectively deal with and handle issues that they commonly face in life. So, some of these skills are problem solving, critical thinking, communication, decision making, interpersonal relationships, self awareness, empathy, coping with stress and emotions, etc. And all of these can be taught to the students via activities, programs, interactions, etc.
Yes, and I feel like um, the next equally important skill is soft skills,
Hmm.
Soft skills are a combination of people skills, social skills, communication skills, um, personality traits, career attributes, social intelligence, and even emotional intelligence quotients that sort of enable people to navigate their environment, work well with others in a team, and perform well with a positive attitude. And along with this, complementary are the basic hard skills. Now, these are a little bit more technical, related to research, computer technology, and so on.
Right. And I think apart from these skills, more emphasis needs to be placed on value education, which covers various topics related to ethics, For example, respect for the environment, becoming aware of the consequences of our actions on the planet and instilling a sense of respect for nature.
Absolutely. Along with that, I think it's very important to acknowledge society and civic responsibility because, we live in a society. The ability to exist in a proper functioning society is very important. And also actively involving ourselves in politics, identifying and exercising our individual rights, speaking up against injustice. I feel like all of these things are very important.
Absolutely. And, if you're talking about societal and civic responsibility, I think an important part of that is population education, which helps people gain the information and motivation to make healthy decisions about safe sex practices, planned parenthood tips, family planning, etc., all of which is incredibly important, especially now that the population of the world is growing at such an alarming rate.
Absolutely. And now since we're talking about the more modern topics that need to be included, let's not forget women empowerment. Now,
Oh, yes.
empowerment is basically the process of accepting and allowing women into the decision making process. And it's noted to be one of the most crucial points for the overall development of a country. And when we talk about women in general, I've often noticed that a lot of my textbooks, a lot of my study material over the years have never really included women, you know. So we've always learned about the father of computer science or the father of evolution and so on. But what about the female roles? They've never been mentioned. They've basically been neglected in textbooks and courses. And so
I agree.
inclusion of inclusion of movements led by women, and especially the role of women in today's scenario when we see countries led by women like New Zealand and Germany, we need to realize their role in the global society, and so this is a very important thing as well.
Definitely. And their stories are also very inspiring for young girls, and they need to be given more importance and more spotlight. And I think, keeping in line with this conversation about gender, I think gender sensitization is also incredibly important in today's time. Just, raising awareness leads to a change in attitude, behaviors, and beliefs that, you know, reinforced the inequalities between men and women for centuries. So, gender sensitization helps us to examine our own attitudes and beliefs, and it makes us question the realities that we thought we knew. So, I think gender
Mhm.
sensitization is a basic requirement to understand the sensitive needs of any and all genders.
I agree. And talking about sensitivity, let's not forget being sensitive while using social media.
Oh,
Even though
yes.
yeah, even though it's a virtual space, we need to realize our ethics, the use of language, the content that we share. We need to make sure that um, s- we are sharing news from verified sources, and
Absolutely.
we're not engaging in spreading false information.
I
And
mean, we've seen, I think, these past few months
yeah,
how the repercussions that misinformation, the spread of misinformation has. So I think that's something that everyone should really be mindful of.
exactly. And the most important thing is to stop believing all that is on social media and even on the
Yes.
internet. So this, we should make sure we know how to filter what we consume and also respect our fellow cyber citizens. This is a term that is used to describe everyone that is on social media, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's a good way to bring everybody under a global term. called cyber citizens, and we should make sure we refrain from going to the dark side of the internet.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought this up because cyberbullying has increased tremendously in the past few years as a result of internet usage and social media usage. And that has a direct effect on a person's mental health, as we mentioned in our previous episode, which was dedicated entirely to the topic of mental health. So I think right now it's very important to create awareness about mental health issues among students. And like we said in our previous episode, school is the place to start the conversation around mental health.
Exactly. And let's not forget physical health, health, nutrition, as well as fitness. All of this should be encouraged with the right attitude. And tackling health education is a very important part of our school life. Basic dietary knowledge, BMI calculation, which is our body mass index, and
Hmm.
healthy practices that should be imbibed in daily life. All of this needs to start from school. And more physical
True.
activities should be there for everyone at school, not only the athletic kids. And related to health, we talk about first aid. Um, we should have a first aid kit everywhere, and there should be a basic guideline on what to include in the kit and how to use all of those things.
Right.
There are these certain medically approved workshops where they teach how to give a CPR, how to give the Heimlich's maneuver, which is basically, when somebody's choking, you need to sort of
Right. Right.
uh, perform this abdominal thrusting. So that's very important.
Right.
This could be helpful in daily life, and these are such emergency situations. And also other situations like earthquakes and floods. Nobody really teaches us what to do during those times, you
Exactly,
know.
the drills
Mhm.
during such situations.
Yeah, so more of this should be included, and more of these survival skills need to be in the normal curriculum.
Yes, definitely. So I think all of these things that we just mentioned can be inculcated in the curriculum from a very early stage, that is, when students are still in the primary level of schooling. But for secondary schoolers, I think some topics that can and should additionally be taught are things like time and resource management, where students are taught to prioritize, delegate, make decisions, set goals, multitask, solve problems, make schedules, etc., which are all very important, not just for their higher education, where they'll be required to meet deadlines and juggle many tasks at a time, but also later in life, when they're in their jobs, etc.
I
And along
completely
with that,
agree. I mean, I'm terrible at time management, so I
it's all
really
right, I'll help you
improve
with
a
that.
lot. Oh, thanks. I
And
think
I
you're way
think
better
along with,
than me. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I do like to be organized. So
and I'm
yeah,
the
I
messy
think
one, so
along with that, that brings about another point, important point, which is responsibility.
hmm.
And so household responsibility is also extremely important, where kids need to be taught division of chores at home. And I'm not just talking about the gender division, but also just equally distributing the work among spouses as well as the children. And also things like how to look for houses, what to consider when looking for a house or a car or any other amenity or asset, etc.
And when we talk about assets, there comes this whole topic of finance. And I feel like it's so important to teach um, the younger generation about how to manage their finances, their money. And budgeting is such an important part. So, budgeting and saving basically includes about how to create a proper budget, using basic skills to figure out where we are spending and where we need to start saving more, and the
Right, right.
ability to devote proper amounts of money towards these savings. And along with savings, you'll have to then deal with bank accounts and stuff like that. So even how to deal with banks and the whole procedure in general needs to be taught, because this is really helpful in towards the
Yeah,
adult
absolutely.
life. Yeah. And a lot of countries have taxation systems. So taxation, investment, accounting, all of these things need to be taught, because these processes cannot be easy and they're very tiresome. So, at least basic information about how to go about the tax filing and understanding how the investment market works and where
Right.
to put one's money, that could be taught in schools, yeah. And
Hmm.
moving on, when we talk about the bigger aspect, the bigger picture, we've sort of coined this new term over the years called entrepreneurship, which is basically being independent and having your own ideas and your own business. So, for being a successful entrepreneur, there are certain things that you need to know about startups, the funding, the different options, and the most important thing when we consider a business is also licensing, because every country has different rules and legal procedures that which can be really tricky to
Confusing.
handle. Yeah, confusing, absolutely. So, such tips and other requirements can be taught to students, because that will definitely help them later on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. And I think that was the last topic on our list of topics that we think need to be included in the school curriculum. And while some of these topics can be explicitly taught, via textbooks and that sort of a thing, the others have to be woven into the curriculum design in such a way that that learning happens automatically. So, through activities and interactions, like I mentioned earlier as well, so
Hmm,
that it stays with the learners forever.
exactly.
And the reason all of this needs to be included in the school curriculum is that, like we mentioned at length in our last episode, school plays a central role in an individual's life, especially during the foundation years of development. So, learning of this kind has to happen at school, where children not only spend most of their time, but also learn to socialize and develop other aspects of their personality.
Exactly. You see, it's as simple as this. Without a broader, more revolutionary notion of what curriculum is and where curriculum manifests itself, we won't create and come to have the kinds of curricula that we need in the world today.
Very true. Because the goal of schooling and education goes far beyond theoretical knowledge and
Hmm.
needs to be teaching the students few basic skills to navigate through life and other practical concerns that students encounter, they're bound to encounter beyond the scholastic threshold, and which they will later grapple with in their adult life.
Exactly. And we have now come to realize that education needs to be more dynamic and we need to change the curriculum in accordance to what the world needs today, and not the same old textbook that was printed like 20 years ago.
Completely true. Notable countries like Scotland and the United Kingdom, for instance, have actually started including various topics that we just spoke about today in their curriculums,
Hmm.
which I think is brilliant.
Absolutely. And on that note, we have come to the end of this rather thought provoking episode.
Yeah, well, these were just some of the many topics that we would want to see in the future being a core part of the curricula.
Hmm.
But what are some more aspects of life that you think one must learn at school? Do let us know on our Instagram page, Two Pupils in a Pod, or via our DMs, which are always open.
That's it from our side. Thank you so much for listening. Signing off until next time, we are Fatima and Sakina.